Hi again, everybody, and welcome into the show. Steve Lloyd-Jones with head coach Matt Mitchell as Grand Valley heading into the final week of the regular season. They'll be at home this Saturday, 1 o'clock, the kickoff against Tiffin University. Lakers a tough loss on the road at Ashland this past Saturday night, 34-31. Mitch, it was just coming down to the last play, several of those this year, and this one maybe even extra bitter.
Very frustrating. You know, we've had 3 games or 3 losses of the last play and the opposing team stormed the field. And so, it was really tough, especially didn't play exactly great football in the first half offensively. And then we kind of fought back and we're playing better football and to tie the game up and then, surrendered on the last second field goal. It's just we've had kind of 3 heartbreak losses and it's been tough bus rides home, for our kids and our players and the coaches too. It's been one of those seasons, been pretty frustrating just in terms of the way the games have gone down, and Saturday was no different.
The third loss for the Lakers this year, but back at home this Saturday against Tiffin to close things out in the regular season. And tonight we're going to talk with wide receivers coach, associate head coach Jack Ginn, and also one of the players off your defensive line, senior Cody Moore.
Yeah, having Coach Ginn back on. Receivers are having a great year. Got to take a look at Brandon Bean and what he's done, this entire season. And we're playing his last home game on Saturday, obviously, as the seniors, sent off the seniors. And Cody Moore, a senior coming in, been a guy that's been in our program and with a couple injuries up front has really had to play, a much bigger role here the last few weeks and has done a really good job of kind of stepping in and filling in and playing both end and an interior defensive line.
Also, we're going to talk about the path to the playoffs. Mitch will break that down for us, some coaching tips and more. It's all ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell gets started here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We'll be right back. Yeah, the teams exchanging special teams favors there each way. The Lakers there on that particular play getting set up to get a tying touchdown. Bryce Young-Walls would run it in, the first of 3 for him on the night. Lakers, though, falling in the end to Ashland on the road. But head coach Matt Mitchell back with us here inside the Main Street Pub in Allendale. Mitch, to talk more about that. It was back and forth. You were saying there as we open things up, offense struggled a bit in the first half. Defensively, you got a lot of good plays in the second half, but you couldn't get all of the units playing well together.
And that's been a theme on these losses. You get one side of the ball that's playing pretty well, and the other side of the ball is struggling, and we can't really put a complete half together, and even really a complete, obviously game together. So, we came out at the first half. I thought our defense did some really good things in the first half. We were stopping the run. I think we had Tarnowski a little bit off balance. We were getting stops and, got the ball back to our offense. As you mentioned, we traded special teams errors. It's embarrassing for us. We only had 10 guys on the field on the punt. I didn't have a gunner out in the field. I had a redshirt freshman that maybe the moment was a little bit too big for him, and he didn't go. He wasn't out there. So their punt returner returned it down to the 10 and gave them a short field, and then obviously they had a high snap. We took advantage of that. So you talk about that 7-7. We couldn't really generate anything else offensively the rest of the first half. We gave up one explosive run when we ran a blitz that they got in. But then, I think a big series too was they got the ball kind of on the end of the half, and we had a timeout, and we had some miscommunication coming out of the timeout. And we cut a wheel route loose on their sideline, and you were there. And so Jacob Studdard has to come over from the safety position to try to make up for the error on the field from a miscommunication, and he gets the targeting penalty. So in addition to the ball, being caught around the 50-yard line, they get an additional 15 tacked on it, and we lose a safety in the same play, and I got the ball down in there. And luckily we held them to a field goal attempt. But, man, if we just could have kept it to maybe a one-score game at halftime, there would have been a little bit – better feeling at halftime. Obviously, we regrouped at halftime. We came out, gave up a score. All of a sudden, you're looking up, it's 24-7. But at that point in time, we started stringing together some really good series. We got a little bit more explosive offensively. I think we knew the whole time that their D-line was good, but they weren't very deep. And if we kept leaning on them, that there was going to come a time when things were going to hit. I thought Bryce ran well. He had a career high, I think 140-plus yards. Tried to have Martavius go in big games like that. You try to have your best players there. He could not go. He was not able to do anything on the ankle in pregame. We tried a couple snaps during the game, but it was ineffective. But we hit some plays. Bart got going, a little bit better protection, poor protection first half. But we get the score to tie it, and we have a personal foul in the end zone. I didn't see it on tape. I don't know if it was warranted or not, but it got called. Didn't really matter. And instead of them, us having to kick off from the 35, we're kicking off from the 20. And that hurt, Steve. It hurt bad because it set up them with much better field position on the return. And, obviously they drove down. And, another game where there's some talk on the headphones. Do we let them score? But just felt like with a minute left with only 2 timeouts, the way their D-line was playing, that was going to be a tall task for our offense to try to answer a touchdown score. We felt better just keeping our defense on the field and trying to go for the block.
Talking about the game at Ashland for Grand Valley on Saturday, and the segment presented by Earhart Construction, the official construction company of Grand Valley Sports Network. Yeah, the Lakers with the 3 losses thus far this year, and all of them kind of similar in that last play type of thing. I got the same feeling at Ferris. Of course, they had to drive the field for a touchdown, but it wasn't a penalty. It was the wind in that particular case that gave them a short field. But yeah, that was a huge difference, that kickoff where they get almost to midfield before they have to do anything.
Yeah, and it was frustrating too because J.J. McGrath was kicking great. I mean, his kickoffs were touchbacks. I mean, it was doing really well. And so even though that was kind of technically into the wind a little bit, he drove enough kickoffs so we got some touchbacks. And the previous kickoff, we pinned him down inside the 10. They had a penalty on the deal, and they scored on that drive. But we were kicking the ball off well. So that penalty, that 15-yard penalty, really hurt us, in that situation and allowed them to play the game a lot different. They been backed up with about 2 minutes left on the clock with only 1 timeout. I'm sure they've been a little bit more conservative about potentially trying to get to overtime. But when you got the ball in the midfield and you have a good kicker, their kicker is really good. You're going to obviously try to get the thing down in there and give them an easy attempt.
I liked your strategy at the end there where you have the timeout. You could ice him again, but you didn't. But it's that doubt in his mind, everybody's mind. Are you going to call it? Are you not? And you could feel the kind of the hesitancy.
Yeah,
of them.
And I've done that a couple times. I feel like with 2 timeouts left, you don't want to get too predictable, but you let them line up. You kind of burn the first one, and then they know, well, he's got the second one. Is he going to, as you mentioned, use it or not? 9 times out of 10, I don't use it. So, yeah, I mean, at that point in time, we're going block max. We're trying to send the house, trying to get everybody home, trying to do everything we possibly can just to try to force overtime. And obviously came up a little bit. We did come up short on that particular rep, but a lot of things led into it.
Well, let's talk as we look back over some of the numbers here. Bryce Youngwall's great game. He seemed to get better as the game went along. 3 touchdowns for him, 145 yards, averaged almost 7 yards a carry. Nick Dodson with some amazing grabs in this one. Garrett Pounet defensively had 16 total tackles, including a sack. But I look back in that second half where things started to go your way. It was the catch to Parody up the sideline. It was the catch by Brandon Bean on 4th down where he falls out of bounds. It seemed to spark you. The wide receivers were the guys making plays.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think we had to get aggressive. We had to go for it on 3rd and 4th down. We tried to make some things happen, and I thought Bart Williams played a great game. Anytime you take a loss, it's going to be difficult, but I thought he competed. Things weren't clean in the pocket. He was moving around the pocket, and he made some plays. And you look back upon it, we probably could have got the ball a little bit more to Nick Dodson on the inside. We were trying to throw the ball on the edges. I would give their corners credit. Both their corners played extremely well against our outside guys, but you're right. Parity makes a play, and again, for a sophomore, I think he's really done a great job this season of just making a lot of plays in these big games. And Bean and Kaiser comes up with the touchdown, and to tie the thing back up, and a lot of plays there. And Bryce in the run game was pretty ineffective in the first half. We kind of leaned on him, going, that's the type of back Bryce Youngwalls is. He's a kind of a guy that you give him enough carries, and he keeps things moving, and he's physical. He's a very physical running back and plays with a lot of emotion. So, for him to score those 3 touchdowns in that game was just, I think, really big for his self-confidence too, heading into Saturday, and really, as we start to move him forward, I think he's done a great job this year establishing himself as a legitimate, tailback back there in our offense and not just the other guy.
No, he's been great. Coors Light Ice Cold Question now, presented by Alliance Beverage. Coors products distributed locally in the West Michigan area by Alliance Beverage. Well, you look at the latest rankings, the NCAA Super Region 3. Fort Hays number 1, Indianapolis 2, Ashland 3, Ferris 4. All of those teams either undefeated or just one loss. But it's interesting to look at seeds 5 through 7. 7 make it into the playoffs. Wichita Baptist 8-2, Northwest Missouri State 8-2. They lost to Fort Hays on Saturday. Arkansas Tech 8-2. Harding ahead of you at 8, 7-3. Then Grand Valley at 7-3. So Mitch, the path to the playoffs. What in your mind has to happen? How good a chance does Grand Valley have to make the playoffs?
Well, I mean, we got to win on Saturday, so we've been kind of focusing on that. But if that happens, there's some other games happening that we're going to have some people knock some people off. I mean, probably the least likely one to occur would be Missouri Western beating Northwest Missouri State. Missouri Western's kind of been on a slide here recently after starting out the season strong. And then, if we would have been ahead of Harding, I would have said either Harding beating Arkansas Tech or Henderson State beating Wachita Baptist. Either one of those happening, I think we'd be in good position. The fact that the regional committee put Harding ahead of us, there's some questions I have about why that occurred. But regardless of that, now that that's been established, that might get reversed the other way. So it could be one or the other. But you might be putting yourself into a situation where you're going to need Henderson State to upset Wachita Baptist. Now, that's not like an 0-10 team playing a 10-0 team.
Right.
Okay, Henderson State and Wachita Baptist are huge rivals. They're actually located in the same town. Henderson State is really hot right now. They're on a win streak, and they're playing really good football. So, we have to take care of our game. This is a moot point if we don't play well, but we'll be again after that game. I think one of them's a 2:00 start, the other one's a 3:00 start down there in the GAC. We'll be kind of watching those things, and we've definitely been trying to make our case with the regional committee and try to explain it. And then there's the regional committee submits their recommendations for 1 through basically 10 to the national committee, and then the national committee goes from there. And it's not for the most part they'll follow suit with what the regional committee does, but there's been a few instances where I think the national committee's trumped them. So if neither Arkansas Tech, Northwest, or Wachita Baptist lose, then it's a moot point. We're out because they're all 2-loss teams. But if there's a 3-loss team that's looking at the 7 seed, I just have a hard time thinking that we're not a really viable candidate. When you take a look at our 3 losses, huge, quality of wins. Like the 3 teams we've lost to right now are 27-2, and I don't know that any of them are going to lose on Saturday. They ended up 30-2, and we've lost on the last play in all 3 of those. Do we have like a signature win? No, but Northwood, we're kind of rooting for them to beat Northern Michigan. That will get them to 7-4. If we're fortunate enough to beat Tiffin this weekend, that's another quality win because they have a winning record. And even down at Truman State beat McKendree, you're kind of rooting for Truman to beat McKendree and get to 5-5 in D2. So,
sure.
A little bit of scoreboard watching this happen. Unfortunately, it's not in our control anymore. Some other things have to happen, but we're not sitting here on a Thursday talking about our seniors and being completely dead in the water. That's right. I guess there's something to be said for that.
All right. So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying Wichita Baptist, Henderson State. That's really the
big
key
one. Yeah, I think that's the big one. I think if you're, us, if you're a Laker fan, you're going to want to watch that scoreboard and see, cross your fingers, Henderson State beats Wichita Baptist. I think that's probably the best path.
All right. We'll keep you up to date as the game goes Saturday and the scores and how that impacts Grand Valley. Show brought to you in part tonight by Cardinal Buses. Go in comfort, go in style, and go green, go with Cardinal Buses. We'll be back with more, including wide receiver coach, associate head coach Jack Ginn coming up as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell continues right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Welcome back, everybody. Live inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones alongside the wide receiver coach, associate head coach Jack Ginn. And the Lakers there on Saturday at Ashland. Wide receivers, of course, factoring in a big way in this one, Jack. Nick Dotson leads you with 4 grabs, 50 yards. But, boy, you go all through that wide receiver core in this game. Brandon Bean, big catches. Dotson, a diving grab across the middle late. Austin Parody seemed to be the spark that got you going in the second half with a big grab. You just had guys making plays all over the place.
Well, we have a obviously a good group of receivers, and I'm awful proud of them. We didn't make enough plays, so would have liked to have a few more. But Ashland's secondary, I think, is probably the best we've seen. Their defensive backs did a really good job. It was a good battle, and we made some plays, and they made some plays. But our kids have come a long way. It's been a lot of development and a good group to coach. I've enjoyed it a great deal.
Development that you've noticed, who has improved the most?
The most improved guy by far is Brandon Bean, which
Wow.
is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But he has really become a complete receiver. Nick Dodson is Nick Dodson. He was injured for a while, and Nick is he doesn't have the physical capabilities to do all the things that Brandon can do from a size standpoint, but then Austin Parity has come along. It's been a steady improvement from year one with him, and it's you just hope it keeps coming, which remains to be seen a little bit. But he's really come along, and Brandon Wadley has improved a lot, being a redshirt freshman. If you'd asked me in the spring if I thought Brandon Wadley was going to play the number of snaps he's played up to this point, I would have told you no way. But he's really done a good job this fall, and he made some mistakes there, at Ashland, but he has really come along and done a good job.
We've seen throughout the year quite a few long touchdown runs. Now, Marty Carter, some of those, no doubt that's his ability with his great speed, but you can't have the number of long touchdown runs, I mean plus 40-yard type things that you've seen without wide receivers doing a good job blocking, right?
Yeah, and that's something we take a lot of pride in. It's something I take a lot of pride in. I'm not your typical wide receiver coach. So
what's the typical one, Jack?
Oh, young guy that's, kind of hip, got some swag to him, and chest bumping guys on the sideline
right.
And all that. Yeah, I don't do any of that. So but I take a lot I know it's important, and I take a lot of pride in it, and our players have taken a lot of pride in it, and they've done a good job. And you never know with our backs. You never know.
Right.
So you got to be ready. And there have been a couple runs this year where, we didn't get the block, and if we had, it would have been a touchdown type deal. So we've learned our lessons like that, and they've done a good job downfield.
As you look at it Saturday in Ashland, the way as Bart developed through the game, he's going against a good defense, good pass rush, but he could thread a few of those in there too. Talk about the difficulty they presented for you guys in the passing game.
Their corners were good. Everything was contested. They're from the entire secondary. I thought Bart Williams played his tail off, and he really competed.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the big play to Parity. I mean, that was a busted play, get out of the pocket deal. Like he did. Bart did some really nice things. We should have come up with a few more balls for him, but the Ashland got to give them credit, and that we had some balls that we would normally catch that we didn't. And but I thought Bart played. Honestly, I thought Bart played great.
Yeah, no, he sure did. A lot of good decisions. 140 yards, I think, is a little misleading.
Yeah. I mean, you look at his stats, you didn't know how well he played. He really competed, and he put the ball where it needed to be, and we just had to make a few more plays for him.
As his career has gone, I mean, you see this year, just 2 or 3 interceptions the whole year. And I know that's partly him reading what a wide receiver's doing and a defensive back is on the receiver, but that's obviously improved on his side. How have the receivers helped him cut down on interceptions?
Well, that was a point of emphasis after his first year starting. He threw, I think, 45 touchdowns and 21 picks or something like that. Well, those 21 picks, we went back and scouted it. 12 of them were 50-50 balls. It wasn't like Bart threw it to the defense. It was balls up in the air. We got a guy, they got a guy, and they came down with it. That was 12 of the 21. And since then, we've made it a point of emphasis that if that ball's up in the air and it's a 50-50 ball, we want to catch it. But almost more importantly, we're not going to let anybody else catch it.
Right.
And So we've tried to protect him like that, and Bart's really developed, and he's not quite the. You go back and we've done this. We were getting ready to play Ashland. We were watching 2015. That's the last time we played them, and yeah, Bart, it was caution to the wind, man. He just let it fly sometimes.
Gunslinger.
Right. He's not quite as like that. He's a little more cautious, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's very good. Their wide receiver core, of course, we can include Nick Kaiser in this as well, tight end who basically like a jumbo wide receiver, great hands. And,
he is.
Oh, man,
he's had a great year.
He sure has. Jack, great talking with you. Thanks again, and good best of luck there Saturday against Tiffin.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jack in with us, wide receiver coach, associate head coach with Grand Valley. We'll be back with a breakdown of the Tiffin Dragons, Grand Valley's opponent this Saturday, a 1 o'clock kick at Lover Stadium here in Allendale. We'll be back with more of the program after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We are back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Time for the opponent breakdown for you now. Brought to you by PNC Bank, the official bank of GVSU Athletics. Matt Mitchell back with us. Our thanks again to Jack Ginn. And talking about the Tiffin Dragons now, Grand Valley's opponent this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Tiffin, some injuries, some youth and inexperience at some spots, but, well, they've been able to stay very competitive this year, Mitch. 6-4 coming in.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. I mean, we kind of take a look at their season. They lost a really tight ball game on the road to Saginaw, and if they maybe would have, had that work in their favor with a couple injuries, they could be easily sitting in here coming in at 7-3, the same record that we are. So they played Ferris really tough at Ferris, a 13-3 game. They lost to Findlay, who's regionally ranked, and the other deal is a really good team in the other region, and obviously lost to Ashland at home. I believe it was 38-24, so a 14-point game. So they've been really competitive. I know they've had a lot of injuries here lately. Charles Holland, who was a receiver that everybody in the league knew about, a lot of NFL scouts were asking about, broke his leg, about midway through the season. Tony Shedd, which was their next best receiver, suffered an injury 2 weeks ago. He didn't play. And then Saturday on tape, we saw their starting quarterback, Dick Watson, get hit and go down on his shoulder when a Michigan Tech defender hit him. And don't know, he didn't come in the rest of the game, so don't know his status necessarily for the game. So they've had, they're a spread team. They're a team that likes to throw it around with some quarterback runs and do some things, and they've had some injuries. So I think that's affected their offensive output. That's why you've seen some of the numbers maybe go down a little bit. But the Jaquan Hardy kid, their running back, he runs hard. He's a very physical runner. He likes to run people over, a guy that is downhill, and is very effective that way. And then if we flip the coin to the other side of the ball, Steve, their defense, I think, is right there with us. We're one, they're maybe two, or vice versa in sacks. They got a ton of sacks on the year. Large part of this, they play a really tight coverage, play a lot of man coverage right on top of you. And so quarterbacks have had to hold the ball, and their defensive line has been able to get home because the timing and the rhythm has been off because of the man coverage. And so they've done a good job defensively, being super, super aggressive. And so we are going to have to do some things to make some plays, And I think with the core that we have at receiver and the injury to our running back, and obviously with Bart Williams being there too, it's going to be critical that we're able to protect and throw the ball. And the other challenge a little bit may be the weather.
Yeah.
The weather is a little bit of a factor on Saturday too. So it's definitely a matchup that, we're not, nobody in our building's taking lightly. We've seen it, last year, completely different people. And this is a new challenge. And obviously really important for us to keep things alive. We also have 16 seniors who've been a big part of this program, whether it's for 1 year or 5 or 6 years. And, it's also what we do for Grand Valley football. We don't take anybody granted. We respect everybody and get ready to play.
Yeah, that's right. 1 o'clock the kickoff. Coach Goff he's really turned that program around.
Huge, turning around, big, and he's done a good job of getting some athletes in there. I think for a while, our offense was ahead of their defense. I think one area he's done a good job recruiting in is he's recruited some defensive talent. For a while they're very porous on defense, and he's gotten some guys in there. And Tiffin's made investment in not only football but their athletic department in general. They have an indoor. It's a really, really nice indoor. They put money into their facilities, from a weight room, an indoor locker room type setup, and they've made a commitment to athletics. I think last year they may have won the indoor men's track and field, and then I think they may have won the national championship, if I'm not correct, at the indoor men's track and field. And so they've been very competitive in track and field, and it's a good athletic department. And so they're leaving the GLIAC. This is their last game in the GLIAC this year, so nobody's really talked about that, but we mentioned that in a team meeting that they're looking to move to the GMAC. We've got to make sure that we end things the right way in their last regular season GLIAC game.
That's right. Played them the opener last year and the final game in the regular season this year. All right, Tiffin Dragons, the opponent Saturday at 1 at Lover Stadium. We'll be back with the keys to the game for Grand Valley. The GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell continues after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Grand Valley falling by 3 at Ashland Saturday, but this Saturday at home against Tiffin, a 1 o'clock start. Back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Show continuing. It's brought to you by GVSUTeamShop.com, authentic Laker apparel for every game. Grand Valley against Tiffin, the Dragons 6-4. So head coach Matt Mitchell alongside. And Mitch, keys to the game now presented by Fox Motors, only the best.
Well, I think when you face these spread offenses, there's a tendency to try to cover things down and stop their passing attack. But we can't forget about the run game. So Tiffin, a key for us is our defense stopping Tiffin's rushing game. And they put you in some binds with some quarterback runs, but we've got to be able to stop the run. So that's going to be coming down to, up front, fitting things up and being physical at the line of scrimmage. Offensively, we're going to have to win some one-on-one matchups. At some point in time when people play man coverage, guys got to win. You can try to scheme guys to get open, but there just comes a point in time where you got to win your one-on-one matchups. Offensively, got to win their one-on-one matchups. And then, I'm expecting wind. I don't want to discourage anybody from coming to the game, but I think there's going to be some wind on Saturday and breezy temperatures. We have to handle that on special teams. Last time we had really windy conditions, Steve, was at Ferris. We didn't handle that very well, and great decisions by the coaching staff on the coin flip, whether to take the wind or which way we're going to have it. And then our special teams adjusting, whether it's punt teams, punt return teams, kickoff return teams, making those necessary adjustments on the sideline and when you're out there to adjust for ball flight and how things are going to go. And then today was windy. We went outside today, and there's a big difference. J.J. McGrath is our field goal kicker. You go one way, it changes your mindset about when to try a field goal attempt versus the other way too.
Sure.
So we got to get a feel for that and make some adjustments, both players and coaches, and do a good job on special teams. Just accommodating and helping out our both sides of the ball with field position. So stopping the run, winning our one-on-one matchups offensively, and then great adjustments on the special teams to deal with the weather that we're getting.
Is it harder to deal with the wind than cold or wet? What's the worst?
I think, if you're a skill guy, I think wet is probably the biggest issue. I think if you're a coach, it's wind. It's wind if you're a coach. I'm not sure that the players maybe it's a big a deal for them. I think wet for the offense. I think defense, they don't care. They just line up and play. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
If you got defensive players that are worried about being cold, then we probably got the wrong defensive players. So we had some defensive guys out there with hand warmers and stuff today, and I'm like, all right, well, that's a problem. So, we went outside all 3 days. I just, we're going to play into stuff on Saturday, so you have to get used to managing yourself and managing your team in those situations.
Now, we're going to talk to a defensive guy here in just a minute.
Yeah, we got Cody Moore on the show, so he's a senior, one of the 16 seniors that we'll recognize on Saturday. And, Cody is down from the Indianapolis area and has done a really good job here this senior year of just playing everywhere, man. He's had to play his natural position is 3 technique, a defensive tackle, but he's played some nose. And we've had some injuries at our ends, and so he's had to bump out and play ends. So literally of the 4 D-line spots, he's playing all 4. I thought he made some plays against Ashland. In the absence, we've had a couple guys banged up. Keon Belcher's been out, for basically 2 games now, and Demetrius Farmer's a little banged up. And so Cody has been a rotational player with those guys all year, but has really had to play a significant number of snaps with some injuries, and I thought he's handled that really, really well. So I just wanted to try to get him on the show and talk about his career and his experiences at Grand Valley.
That's right. He's coming up right after this timeout. We'll be right back with more of the GVSU Football Weekly Report after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network. That Kaiser right there hauling in one of his 3 grabs on the night. That score, 40 yards total for him. That tied it up at 24. Later in the game at Ashland Saturday. Coming up this Saturday, Grand Valley at home against Tiffin. 1 o'clock the kick there. And Matt Mitchell back with me along with the senior defensive lineman Cody Moore.
Yeah, Cody hailed from Fishers High School down in Indianapolis and recruited by former assistant Chris Simpson, if I remember correctly, and a couple other guys recruited in the same graduating class from there. And whether it become injuries or other decisions, Cody has been the guy that's kind of been able to finish out his career and has an undergraduate degree already. Is in grad school. So talk to us about that recruiting process and maybe coming in with some guys that you knew in high school and being kind of the last man standing of that crew.
Yeah, it was fun for us to go through that together, the 3 of us coming up. And Seth was the first one that actually got picked up from Grand Valley, and he was one of our safeties. And I believe it was at that time Simpson had asked him if there was anybody else that was looking for a spot. And, Robbie, who was our linebacker that came with me, he and I were already towards the end of our senior season. We're not getting recruited by anybody anymore. He kind of turned some things down. Everybody that was recruiting me just kind of passed up on what was going on with me. So we were just like, we're not going to go anywhere, so let's just keep working out and let's just do our thing. And Seth brought that to our attention. One thing leads to another. Here it is, mid-December. I come up to Grand Valley. There's 4 feet of snow on the ground and get a workout. And, and the way everything shook out, here I am. I'm still here. The other 2 are they're living their lives, their best lives that they're doing right now, but I'm still here. So
awesome. Yeah, and, as a player was a very active 3 technique, maybe not the prototypical size, necessarily, but an active guy. But, I think over the course of your career, work ethic has always been off the charts, and you've really loved the strength and conditioning aspect of things. When it comes to personal performance and that piece of things, that's been a big key just from the outside looking in. Just talk a little bit about learning about that and your growth and development, maybe not so much football, but in terms of just athletic performance and you as a physical athlete.
Yeah, I've always prided myself on being able to push myself further than people around me. I know I'm not the most athletically gifted or the best looking as it is, but I'm going to work with what I have, and what I do have is this discipline that I can get into a weight room or I can get into the field and just push and push and push and push and see how far I can go. And that really culminated freshman year when I saw guys like Matt Armstrong and DJ Hogan and Matt Judon pushing themselves, and I was like, these are the guys I should mold myself after. And it stayed that way even up through this year, and especially last year when DJ again was in his senior year, and we lifted and we ran and we did all of our workouts and all of our off-season trainings together. We ate together. And I saw how he took care of his body and the way he performed, and I wanted that. So I tried to mold myself after these Laker greats that I'm looking at, and I just tried to put myself in the best position with what I have to contribute.
And obviously, huge impact, really, to be honest with you, this senior year we had, an interior basically kind of at the start of the year we had you and Keon Belcher, and then we added Demetrius Farmer, 3 interior defensive linemen we felt good about. and you guys played quite a bit. And then we had the emergence of kind of Wallace Hall. I think Wallace Hall is a redshirt freshman's kind of come in, and then with some injuries that we've had in, at the end position, you've had to bump out and play a little bit defensive end. So talk about game plan meetings on Tuesday and how you've handled 3 technique nose and also playing, maybe some rush too.
Well, the smart thing to say here was that I was super locked in on all of it, and I took intense notes, and I got to it. But what I would really want to say is I got the feel for it in film, and then when you're playing all 4 positions throughout the time of practice, you kind of just have to get in there and do it. And I took my lumps on the Wednesday meeting in the film session after I made several mistakes at each position, and then I got that cleaned up on Wednesdays, and I just tried to do my best to perform in those situations when I was needed. And I hope I can still continue to do that as we move.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the intro, shifting to the off the field, I already have your undergraduate degree and working on a master's degree. So take us through, academically what you have accomplished and what your major is right now, or grad programming right now, and then what you hope to do with it when things are finished up.
Yeah, I graduated with a marketing degree, and I did that in 3.5 years. I did that through taking 15, 16 credit hour semesters, summer classes, and I brought in some AP credits from high school. And I can thank my mother for that, because I did not want to be in those classes at all, but she really pushed me through it. So I had all that, and now I'm chasing the master's in business administration with a finance emphasis. What I want to do with that afterwards, I am not sure yet, but long-term goal, I will be retired in 5 years, and I will have my own shed with a weight room and 30 yards of track. And it's going to be great. So keep on the lookout for that.
All right. It's, he knows what he wants. There's something to be said for that. So, well, appreciate everything you've done. Obviously, this had a great year this year, so appreciate that. And let's go get him against Tiffin.
Yes, sir.
All right.
He is the man with a plan. Thank you, Cody. Great having you.
I appreciate it.
Cody Moore, that interview brought to you by Country Dairy, the official milk of GVSU Athletics. Super Region 3, we'll talk about that, how things shape up for Grand Valley here. The final week of the regular season coming up Saturday. We'll be right back with more of the show after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Bryce Young Walls, career high 145 yards Saturday. 3 TDs, including that one right there. Grand Valley tying it up late. And this Saturday, 1 o'clock, the kickoff against Tiffin to end the regular season. As mentioned, around Super Region number 3, just joining us. So the latest rankings for you. Fort Hays State ranked number 1. They're undefeated. Indianapolis is number 2. They're also undefeated. But then Ashland number 3, they have a loss. Ferris State 4, they have a loss. Wichita Baptist has 2 losses at 5. Northwest Missouri State at number 6, they've lost 2 in a row. And then Arkansas Tech with a couple of losses at 7. So earlier in the show, which we were breaking down how Henderson State, a big rival of Wichita Baptist, they're going to play Saturday. That's kind of the key game for Grand Valley. But Harding, who's number 8 right now in the regional rankings, they're going to play number 7 Arkansas Tech. And we'll see how that shakes out. But there is a chance that you guys perhaps could still jump Harding, isn't there?
I think there is. I think the biggest thing when you take a look at when both teams are 7-3, and our strength of schedule, what was kind of baffling to me of why they got ranked ahead of us regional rankings, our strength of schedule is higher. And I think the argument was made that, they have a quality win over a regionally ranked Ouachita Baptist, which is true, and we don't have a win over a regionally ranked team. But if you're going to take it to that level and look at, a quality win, you also have to factor in the quality losses. And we've had 3 quality losses. The combined records of our 3 losses are 27-2. I anticipate after this weekend, I don't think any of them are going to get upset, so they're going to be 30-2 at the end of the weekend. They're all ranked in the top 5 of the region, and all 3 games are on the road. And, I don't know that victory margin or loss margin matters, but it all came down to one possession. They were 1-possession games, 1-score games. So that's why we were a little confused as to why Harding was ahead of us when you took a look at the regional rankings. I think if we would have been in at that 8 spot, you would have felt like either, as I mentioned earlier, either Henderson State beating Ouachita Baptist, or had we been ahead of Harding already, Harding beating, Arkansas Tech, that we might have been in a good shape to get another 7. But that could change. The regional rankings that they come out week to week, those are just a guide. The only ones that really matter are the final ones. On Sundays, they get together. It's actually Saturday night. They put the recommendations of the 7 teams, and they take it on to a national committee. The national committee takes a look at the 4 regions, and then they set the field, which is announced 5 p.m. on Sunday. So, as I said earlier, we got some scoreboard watching to do. We got to watch our scoreboard first, and then we got to watch some other scoreboards, kind of see what happens. And probably won't 100% know till Sunday at 5. But if Ouachita Baptist and Arkansas Tech win and Northwest Missouri win, there's obviously not going to be a case because nobody's going to have 3 losses. But you get somebody gets up above us, gets tagged with the 3rd loss. It certainly could make things interesting when it's time to make some decisions about what 8-3 team gets in at the 7th spot.
Yeah, and I know there's certain criteria that the committee has to look at. If I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, last year Ashland got bumped out of the 7th spot after the regional committee had put them in.
Yep.
And the national committee changed that. So my question to you is, how big a deal is it to get conference representation here?
Well, and that's, I don't know because I'm not in any of these meetings, but you could definitely look at, you got 2 from the GLIAC, 2 from the MIAA. If you're going to take another 8-3 squad, you take 2 from the GAC from that. But that's not a criteria.
Right.
That's not listed as a criteria as conference representation. There's a thing called earned access where everybody gets at least 1 in if you're in the top 10 of the regional rankings, but there's nothing in there about equity, equal representation from conferences, the 2-2-2 model. So you got to, you still got to go based on the criteria and the numbers that they have in terms of the strength of schedules and a lot of things that are, happen. I think the hard thing with Harding and us in that one is there's 5 criteria. We were dead even on all 5 for the most part, and they had to go kind of off script and kind of use a little bit of subjectivity as you started getting down to that. And so, that's maybe why Harding was ahead of us in those regional rankings. But you're right. Those were just a set of regional rankings that were released. That doesn't necessarily mean that there'll be a new set. There's a lot of games still being played in our region that could unfold after all the games are done Saturday evening.
All right, Grand Valley, kind of as Mitch said, got to take care of business against Tiffin. And then a little bit of scoreboard watching with the Henderson State-Ouachita Baptist game of utmost importance. Also, Arkansas Tech and Harding, and then Northwest Missouri State, too. They're playing Western Missouri. Not much of a chance probably there, but you wouldn't have thought that a couple of weeks ago with Pittsburgh State.
No, you wouldn't have. I think Pittsburgh State rolling into that game was 4-4, and upset an undefeated Northwest Missouri, and then you got the tight one with Fort Hays. So, they're back-to-back losses. Hearing rumors about their offense, maybe a little bit banged up and some issues offensively. So it's a rivalry game. Missouri Western, Northwest Missouri State are rivals, not too far apart. And, the hard part is I take a look at some of the scores and what's happening. It's been like 4 or 5 straight losses. That's going to be probably a tougher one to pull off. But, you need, we've been talking, you need one of those 2 losses teams to get the 3rd loss.
Yeah.
And you have an 8-3, and you open up the discussion of which 8-3 team deserves to get in as the 7th seed.
That's right. It's the Lakers hoping for that chance. Well, this segment presented by Modern Office brings spaces to life with Modern Office. We'll be back to wrap things up on the GVSU Football Weekly Report here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Winding things down tonight, again inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Show brought to you by GVSUTeamShop.com, authentic Laker apparel for every game. Our thanks tonight to Brendan Riley back in the studio for a job well done. The Lakers went up on Saturday, 1 o'clock kick against Tiffin. And that'll be a special time, some special promotions going on.
Yeah, we have some great stuff going on for that game, and a lot of credit has to go to our sports marketing department for setting this up. I mean, we're doing a military appreciation theme in a game. And so, first of all, it starts with our uniforms. We've got some special uniforms that we're rolling out for that game, which is, kind of creates more interest. Pretty cool for our kids. everybody within the athletic department has been asked to provide names of family members that have served or are currently serving in the armed forces. Those will be up on the screen as recognition for their sacrifices. We have the game balls. Assuming the weather cooperates, we've got a skydiving team that's going to deliver the game balls with some. One of the guys has got a flag, and one of the guys has got some smoke, and they're going to drop right down on the 50.
Wow.
They have some cameras that they're going to be wearing, and so I think the plan is right now to show some of the footage of them on the way down on the video screen, so you can probably see them dropping down from their perspective on the video screen as you start seeing them coming in live. And coaches are wearing some special stuff again as a tribute to those. So really cool stuff. There's a lot of people in our athletic department that are affected by the service of vets. As I mentioned, some of my stuff, my dad was able to serve in the 82nd and the 101st Airborne, so I was the son of a veteran. And, that military lifestyle when I was growing up was something that was, what I was a part of. And I understand the sacrifices that are made and very respect that. So I'm glad that we are, as an athletic department, as a football program, as really as an institution, are able to have these specialty games where we can promote these type of things, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty unique that you can have uniformed skydivers, stuff on the video board. There's time, effort, money that's put into that. So thankful to be an institution that recognizes its vets.
Yeah, very special day indeed. How about a coaching tip or two for us?
Yeah, I think catching football is, you start getting out in the cold here a little bit. You got to try to when you're young, as you're going through. I got a couple kids out there catching the ball. Catch the ball with your hands and not your body. I think the natural instinct, whether you're on defense or offense, is let the ball get to your body. But you got a much wider target area if you can frame the ball with your hands and not your body. And so. Be a hand catcher, not a body catcher when the football's coming at you. And I think that's a skill that can be increased. I think ball skills are a little bit, genetics, a little bit who your parents are. But there's also something I've seen over the years that your ball skills can improve. And whether you play an offensive skill position, running back, wide receiver, tight end, a defensive position, linebacker, DB, be a guy that catches the ball with your hands, not your body.
All right, Grand Valley this Saturday, 1 o'clock the kick against Tiffin. That'll be the end of the regular season for us. Our thanks tonight to senior defensive lineman Cody Moore and wide receiver associate head coach Jack Ginn for stopping by. For head coach Matt Mitchell, I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Thanks for listening to the GVSU Football Weekly Report here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. So long, everybody.